Love's beautiful, but let's be real, it's not always easy. It can bring out our deepest fears, our strongest desires, and sometimes our most confusing patterns. Welcome to Love Better, a space for honest, soul deep conversations about relationships, attachments, and what it really means to love and be loved. I am Shazmin Bank, and if you've ever questioned why love feels so complicated, you are not alone. Let's unpack this together. Today's episode, we talk about healing from anything that you're possibly going through or you've gone through, healing from a friendship, healing from a breakup, healing from a really long-term relationship, healing in divorce, healing from getting fired, healing from your body recognizing that the things that you've been through in your life that you never had the ability for your body to pause and for you to heal all of those things that you were going through. And so this episode is really going to focus on how do I heal from pain or anything that I have been through? And how do I know that I'm healing? And what can I do to begin healing? And while I definitely will go into and touch upon how our bodies work with our nervous system, how the parasympathetic nervous system works, and how the sympathetic nervous system works, I really want to also sort of use this episode to create so much room for healing to take place. So I'm really setting the intention and sending the energy out that anybody listening to this episode is literally on the verge of exhaustion of just being so strong and not processing where they really are and not processing what they have been feeling, but they've been on such a go, go, go with their nervous system in such fight mode to get through life in survival. And now this episode is literally the warm embrace. It is the hug that you have needed to just stop and to pause today in this moment as you listen to this episode and truly embrace pain. Because in order for us to heal, we have to be able to understand that it is not weak to be lost. It is not weak to have feelings of guilt and shame. It is not weak to have feelings of regret and confusion. It is not shameful to have emotions as high as anger and feeling stuck in that anger, so stuck in anger that there's no room to create compassion or empathy to be able to view the other person's pain while creating so much space, validation, and reassurance for yourself. So when we begin to heal, we have to be able to understand that there is something that needs healing. There's always something that needs healing. And I don't know if you have ever experienced, but I've definitely been in moments in my healing journey in the last year and a half where there've been moments of numbness and exhaustion, and they were moments of such high intensity feeling emotions such as pain, confusion, hurt, anger, betrayal, animosity, just suppression, oppression, just so many different emotions that you almost feel like your body is exhausted. You couldn't peak a higher level of emotion like that. And then starting to feel the shame of feeling those emotions, starting to feel guilty that feeling these emotions doesn't really fit with the essence you've always lived by, which is somebody that's very compassionate, very empathetic, somebody that has really lived life understanding why certain actions occur. And I think part of the healing, especially for me, was truly learning that I could be someone that was extremely empathetic, but the only difference now was that I had to have boundaries to my empathy. I have the ability, and I don't know if you can relate as well, the ability to really have so much compassion and empathy to where someone's hurtful behaviors could stem from, especially because I've been trained as a practitioner in this work as well. But it's also so natural for so many people to be highly sensitive, highly empathetic to why somebody would hurt them, the reasoning behind, very often going into the justification of their childhood or life stresses that have pulled out a certain part of them to behave the way they do. The only difference with that kind of empathy is you can end up making a lot of excuses for the behavior to continue. Whereas in my healing journey, I learned that having that empathy and then having a very beautiful boundary that did not allow more pain to come towards me, and having a boundary that allowed the other person to sort of have to deal with and take accountability of their role in their pain, as much as me then taking accountability in how I allow certain behaviors to progress and to be a part of my world because of a lack of boundaries. So I don't know if you've ever experienced being in a period where, you go from the exhaustion, the feeling, the numbness, and then in my personal experience, somehow memories or little different things coming to mind that seemed like they happened such a long time ago. And instead of this time hiding from anything I've ever gone through, I would really gently allow myself to be very present to first the thought that popped up, and I would acknowledge the thought. And then I would thank my body for trusting me, because it meant that I was in a very safe place in my body for that emotion and that thought to come up, because it meant that I had the tools and the skills to be able to deal with it and feel it. So I don't know if you've ever experienced moments where you'll remember something, and normal traditional healing is we avoid, we hide, we deal with so much shame for having this kind of pain, or we have so much shame sometimes for having caused people certain kinds of pain in their lives, that what comes with shame is isolation. What comes with shame is self-sabotage. What comes with shame is not wanting to deal with what we could have done to others and to ourselves. Shame really, makes us reject ourselves, and we sort of feel that we're flawed and we're not good enough. It brings up the unworthy wound within us, where we sometimes talk to ourselves and say, "You're so stupid. You're so dumb. How could you have not caught that? How could you have not seen that? How could you have allowed that kind of behavior to continue?" And very much with a lot of the people that I work with, people that have been cheated on, people that stayed with someone after they got cheated on and then got cheated on again, very much will live in a world of shame, where now they isolate from friends and family because they don't want to hear the "I told you so." They very much don't want to deal with feeling the unworthiness within themselves for tolerating that kind of a behavior. They almost feel like people with standards, the women and men we see on Instagram and different social media handles that seem to have their life put together would never go through this kind of pain. And yet the first step in healing is recognizing pain very much does exist in every single person, but our ability to slow down in life and accept pain, not push it away, not be something that it is separate from us because it's shameful to have it, or we're guilty for having that kind of pain within us, or we're guilty for causing pain to someone. We're guilty for feeling such deep levels of pain that it brought out parts of our personalities we were never ever proud of. I had the beautiful privilege of really listening to a lot of people send me a lot of voice messages, and a lot of what I picked up on this week was the inspiration literally for this podcast, because a lot of people feel the shame of their personalities coming out, where they've either threatened things in a certain way, behaved in a certain way that they never felt proud of, or literally behaved in anger in a certain way that felt like an out-of-body experience, because they've turned around to be like, I could have never been that person. I was not that person. That's not who I am. I'm the person that doesn't get angry. I never used to get angry. I used to be so calm. My essence lays in calmness and softness and kindness. But this particular parent, this particular boss, this particular friend, this particular intimate relationship, the amount of betrayal, pain that I've caused, or they have ended up causing me, has brought out a side in me that makes me reject who I am. So our steps in healing is being able to embrace all the parts of us, all the ugly parts of us, which I wouldn't even say ugly. But in terms of labeling it in that way, the ugly parts of us as well as the delicious parts of us have to merge. We have to be so comfortable with being able to say, yes, there are parts of myself that I was not proud of, and I would take accountability. That pain brought out that side in me. And when I take out accountability, now I'm really in a place of reflection, and I'm truly in a place to be able to pause and see that I have a choice to be able to change this kind of behavior. So we want to move towards healing emotions that we feel we need to push away, because all our emotions are part of understanding what is happening inside of our bodies. And when we're starting to heal, one of the first places that really, really, really helped me, other than really video vlogging and journaling, was actually being able to understand that I cannot think my way out of what I feel. I cannot trick myself into the logic of thinking that now I know I'm in pain, I'm healing. I had to really feel that pain in my body. So as I was saying earlier, whenever these thoughts would pop up, because there's been room created for them, I would not only thank the thought for coming up, but then I would sink in and say, what is the emotion that is coming up with this thought? And I would be very open to exploring those emotions. Something that I actually have downloaded in my phone is the emotional wheel. And you can just Google it and you get the wheel of emotion. And it really helps you sort of look through all these emotions and be able to sort of pinpoint how you're feeling, what's coming up for you. You know, it gives you a good indication into being able to understand there's so many emotions that are present that you would have never thought of. So it helps you better express. So what I love about the emotion wheel, if you even Google it right now, is there are different parts of it that are broken into fearful, angry, disgusted, sad, happy, surprised, bad. But then those stem out. So for example, I felt very limited when I used to say, I feel so angry, but that wasn't really how I was feeling. When I started using the wheel of emotions, I'd be like, I feel frustrated. And that frustrated makes me feel disrespected. And I feel let down and betrayed. And I'm furious at myself for feeling so withdrawn, and I feel numb. And then if I'd feel disgusted, I'd move on the wheel of emotion and I'd name it even deeper. And I'd be like, I feel awful. I feel horrified. And I feel so embarrassed. And if I look at sadness, I realize, wow, I feel despair. And if I look at the side of feeling bad, I'm now feeling overwhelmed. And what I would do is I would work the emotions and I would literally list them down on my phone. And it helped me really tap into not being stuck in the overall wording of emotion, but going into the depth of what I was feeling. But then on top of that, I would always take my right hand and I would sort of just allow my hand to rest on the part of my body that I would feel is storing that kind of pain. And sometimes it would be at the bottom of my belly. Sometimes it would really be deep into my heart. Other times it would be in my mind. Other times I would hold my head and sort of allow my body to rock as I would feel these feelings. I would allow my body to move back and forth with my hand placed on the part of my body that was feeling these. And then I would gently move my hand in circular motions to ease it. And I would say to myself, of course, that I feel these emotions that are coming up. They're so valid. What is the color to this emotion that I'm feeling? And is there a shape to it? And then I would allow myself to feel that I have this golden light healing power that is full of compassion and warmth and powerful healing. And then I would allow that healing white light or a gold light for you, or some of my clients have felt it's a yellow light. Some people have felt it's a beautiful indigo blue light, and allow that to go and soothe into that emotion that you're feeling, and then slowly allow the shape to move into a beautiful sort of a heart shape, something that just feels soft and encouraging. And then I would just gently tap my fingers into that part of the body from the circular motion, and I would rock my body, and rocking my body would really allow me to move from the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I'm making this episode personal so that it can be so relatable to you, because this topic, I want it to feel like a warm hug. And when we can relate and understand that we are so human in our grief, and we are so human in our pain, and we are so human on this healing journey, but we want it, is when we start to really create this unbelievable magic. And the magic started to happen for me when I started to really lean into how my body was responding, but I had to very much learn how my nervous system responded to the emotions and the thoughts. I wanted and was very curious to what was going on in my body, because there were times I had a lot of anxiety. When I learned how my nervous system worked, I sort of felt that I suddenly had a beautiful power and control to being able to heal through my emotions, not push them away, not avoid them, not distract myself, not go put on Netflix, but I was able to move with my nervous system. So if I go into everything being a little technical right now, we have our parasympathetic nervous system and we have the sympathetic nervous system. And if you think of the parasympathetic nervous system, I'd heard someone on YouTube put it so beautifully. She explained it like a parachute. When you think of a parachute, you think of how a parachute comes down very calm and very slowly. So our parasympathetic nervous system is literally the parts of us that regulate emotion and regulate being calm and take us out of fight flight. This is the part of the nervous system where everything within the body comes back into ease. So for example, you could be in a scenario where, let's say, you're drowning. And if you are drowning, your body goes into sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, fight, freeze. And you would be taking on water, you're kicking, you're splashing. And when you're going through something like that, your nervous system literally will go into protective mode. So your reproductive system shuts down. The liver is literally now giving out adrenaline, and it's your body's pushing oxygen into the brain. Your pupils will dilate because you can imagine frantically in fear, your flight mode, the fight mode. You're in a position where literally your body literally is gearing up for conflict. And when you are in a state of conflict, you can only imagine that your nervous system will release adrenaline, your heart is going to race, your mouth gets dry, your airways push that oxygen into the brain to keep you so alert. Your digestive system stops, and your liver releases so much glucose because it has to give you a burst of energy to go through that fight mode. So think of the person that's drowning. Think of the person that's running down a dark alley that's being chased. Think about when you are sitting in an exam and you're going through that stress of, I have to do this last exam and I'm feeling, do I have this? Did I study enough? Am I all right? Think of a time where you've had a massive argument and you're screaming and you're shouting and you're ready to literally lunge. It happens in like these milliseconds where the sympathetic nervous system is so highly activated. And this is the part of us where when we learn that our nervous systems moved into fight, flight, freeze, we can understand that there are different ways now we can bring the nervous system into regulation. And regulation means into a flow of calmness, and that's the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, a lot of the times there's some people that are more highly anxious. There's some people that naturally live in more of a fight mode. When you tend to live in this state, it's almost like the muscle is much bigger. So when you go to a gym and you work on both your muscles equally, you have a balanced out set of muscles. So let's talk about the chest muscle, the bicep muscles. But if you go into the gym and you just work one of the bicep muscles or one of the chest muscles, one would be smaller, one would be bigger. And that's kind of a beautiful way to picture that somebody that's more anxiously attached has that muscle working much bigger, which means they live so much more in the sympathetic nervous system where it's highly activated. They're always on alert. The body is always exhausted, is tired, is fighting. And when it has to move into the parasympathetic nervous system, the vagal nervous system, this is literally relax mode. And some of us, this muscle is much smaller because we've never paused to think about, how do I do that? How do I regulate my body? How do I get my heart rate to slow down? How do I start to breathe very well again? How do I get my pupils to constrict? How do I notice my mouth is salivating again? My bladder will constrict down again and blood increases back to my reproductive organs when I'm in this parasympathetic nervous system state. But we never learn how to do that. So just understanding, first of all, the two roles that these play and the fact that we could either be somebody that lives in a high anxiety, depression, fight mode, or we could be somebody that lives more in a very calm, regulated, easy mode. It helps you really understand, first of all, where you're at. And there's no right or wrong. The point of being able to understand how your nervous system works is it just gives you information and shows you at some point you will have tools and exercises that I will give you later on that help you move into a state of the body that feels more relaxed and calm to be able to deal with things. And that is where our healing takes place, not when we're in fight, flight, or freeze mode or fawn mode. So when we are in a parasympathetic nervous system, when the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, this is when we feel regulated and calm. Our body is at ease to cry. It's at ease to feel. It's really in a trusting state. That's how I like to think about it. I like to think that it's in a state that almost feels like a baby. It's very safe for you to hold it, to embody it. And the sympathetic nervous system almost is something like when you catch a chicken by its legs and it's trying to fly away, or it's all over the place and it's flapping, or like a fish when you catch it out of water and it's dying to get back into its survival mechanism. You're able to see on one side what my body feels like when it's out of kilter and order. And on the other side, what it feels like when my body is calm. Now, if I am someone that has a bigger muscle that's practiced more or enhanced more because I'm more anxious or more depressed, then I can start to learn that I can balance that muscle. Now I have a new muscle that I need to work on, and that's the muscle of regulation instead of reactivity. So it was very, very interesting for me to be able to notice when I would start to get angry. I started to notice, how did that feel in my body? And that alone, just noticing, just the pause in noticing and having that powerful information allow me to notice my heart rate was up, notice if there was any sweating, notice the moments of panic, noticing that I was going to speak very fast, that my mouth would dry up. And it allowed me to really be able to say, I need to breathe. I need to take a deep breath because this state is not going to serve me. The state of being able to allow my body to relax and get out of the exhaustion of where it is, and I can shift it. How powerful that you can shift it into a place where you are so much more regulated and you feel so much more calm. So one of the things that I would explain towards the end are the various ways that you can shift and, sort of bring your body back to its natural environment and move through stressors is something that would really empower you. And I'd encourage you to just make literally a list of 6 things in your phone, in your notes, something that helps you reach out to these tools and just allows you to start paying attention to your body from now. So being attentive to your reactions, how fast your body moves, where's your heartbeat, how are you feeling, how's your head feeling, how's the body feeling, are you feeling clenched up, are your fists clenched up, do you feel tight? And then being able to understand, okay, I need to be able to work through breathing to be a lot more calmer. So part of our healing journey is being able to work with our body, not just our mind. Because if we want to be able to process emotion, we need to give our body the gift to be able to know that it can do that. Because as we all know, that the body stores all these emotions. And that's why a lot of the time, sometimes you notice you catch the flu and you get sick. And obviously the traditional ways to be able to say, oh, look, it's because of the weather or the dust or the allergies in the air. But a lot of the times when we pay attention to our bodies and we listen, we turn around and say, my body needs me to rest. I'm going through something and I'm not paying attention to the emotions that are flooding my system, and my body needs me to slow down. My body is exhausted of me living through my head. It needs me to come back into homeostasis, needs me to come back into a central place where I'm regulated and I can process emotion and allow it out of my body. And because someone very, very, very famous, and I would really encourage you to look up Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's so famous with talking about emotions and the levels of what the negative emotions do upon our body and what positive emotions do in our body, the vibrations that negative emotions send out versus what positive, beautiful emotions send out. And that being said, I've never really believed in, these emotions are negative and bad. They're not things we go towards. And these are positive, beautiful emotions, and we only live in toxic positivity. I think that, and I feel and believe that all the quote unquote negative emotions are actually the gateway to our true selves. When we have the courage to sit down and deal with pain in our lives, when we have the vulnerability within ourselves and we know how to work with our bodies, and our body can trust us to bring up emotions because it trusts we will know how to hold room, nurture, infuse love, give a balance of emotion and opinion and feeling into that emotion, then the body brings more of them and it trusts us to be able to release that emotion out of the body, which I'll give you tips on how to do towards the end of this podcast. So when we're talking about how do I heal from pain, there's no other way, because you cannot escape and hide and get numb from it. So it's being able to literally sit through the ugliness of pain, the darkness of pain. It's being able to allow yourself to cry, to sit in the realization and the truth of where that pain is stemming from. And a lot of the times, because of shame, we don't want to ever go there. We don't want to sit in realization, because what's on the other side of realization? Is it a boundary? Is it a place that leaves us feeling alone? Is it the end of certain relationships? Is it moving on from certain friendships? Is it the bravery to walk away from a job? What's on the other side of pain? But we can never sort of experience how delicious I think pain can be in strengthening who you are. Because I feel when we're healing, and let's say you're going through a really hard time with somebody you love, you're going through a really hard time with a parent, or you're going through a really hard time in a friendship, the first thing you need to be able to recognize is what comes up. Could they be rejection on the other side of that relationship? Is it triggering that I'm not worthy and not lovable? Is it triggering wounds where I want to pull away and isolate? Is it triggering wounds of, me not ever feeling like I'm a priority? It's being able to sit with those wounds and understanding that those wounds have been created from limiting beliefs, and the limiting beliefs that I have control, absolute control, to override, to shift, and to change. So I would encourage you, if you're healing right now, to allow those tears to fall, to allow that pain to be very present, to not stuff it down and not run away from it, but to lean into pain with so much curiosity. When I was going through the very dark journey that I was going through, I know that there were moments that I would literally just sit and I would cry and I would vlog myself. And the reason I would vlog was it would encourage me in that dark moment to speak and to talk and to put feelings and words to the emotions that I was feeling, so that I wasn't just feeling something. And it really helped me understand what I was going through. It helped organize a lot of my thoughts. I would just privately record those moments and soothe myself and cry, and very endearingly, eventually, when I would watch those videos, it would really allow me to see somebody on the side of pain that was so soft and so beautiful and was hurt, and somebody confused and somebody that was lost. And it really sort of pushed me into a deeper place of wanting to heal inner child, because when we are in a place of being or feeling that we are broken or experiencing pain from hurting someone or experiencing the back end of pain, you're in such a delicate, childlike, vulnerable moment. A lot of the times we cry in a way with ourselves that if we release that crying, release that pain, we can never really do in the presence of someone else unless we truly trusted them. So in those moments, it would push me at some point to turn around and say, there is a little child inside of me, but different versions of me. There was a 5-year-old, there was a 10-year-old, there was a 15-year-old, there was an 18-year-old, there was a 25-year-old that really needed to be seen. And in the depths of my pain was when I started to practice literally in those moments, closing my eyes and having very quick meditative moments where I would go into my heart and I would see the version of me that was calling to speak or calling for healing. And I would go into that part of me and I would assure that part of me that there's an adult now very much on the other side that is getting a grip and is now starting to face a lot of things. And she is very strong and she's competent and she's beautiful. And I would use archetypes that would help me. So archetypes of, the queen, the magician, archetypes that allow me to move in different rooms, that different mental rooms that would give strength to my inner child. So there was the warrior, there was the queen that would give beautiful, very composed advice. There was the warrior that would assure my inner child that I always had its back and I was so strong, but I was a very gentle warrior. But clearly I had armor up and that armor was very much protecting the inner child. And then being able to move into an archetype of the magician that could sort of snap their fingers and make sense of everything around them and everything that was going on. And one of my favorite archetypes was literally the sage, because that was very much somebody that was, full of knowledge and ancient and wise and had this all encompassing, I will get you out of this energy, and I'm very protective and I know how to do what I'm doing. So I would work with these different archetypes and reassure my inner child. But in this journey of healing, there came a point one day where, in a meditation session, in talking to my inner child and holding my inner child and putting the little younger me on my lap and rocking her and soothing her and combing her hair. And you could do it, if you're a boy, there's no shame in, having that boy sit at a fireplace and he's making marshmallows, and seeing the younger you as a man, seeing the younger you with this beautiful, lollipop stain all over you, or in your most playful era, or holding the little toy gun or whatever it is, your little toy car or little dinosaur, and being in a place where you really connect with the innocence, the compassion, the purity of your inner child, and then asking your inner child to be very much part of you, to join you, to become one with you, because you want this innocence and this essence to be a part of you in your healing. The reason I say this is because part of your healing is holding first space for you, is being able to be so compassionate to what you are going through, being able to truly validate yourself. And the part of your healing is to know that very often we want the person that has caused us pain to be the person that hears all about it. You should know what you did. You should know what you put me through. I need to get my closure. I need to be able to tell you what you've done. There's something very, very powerful, and I will stand by this, when you choose in silence not to villainize and not to run to them with your pain, but to sit with your pain instead and understand you have all the answers within you to be able to make sense of where you are right now, as opposed to the comfort of trying to co-regulate with someone. You really learn the epitome of what self-regulation is. And the reason I'm saying that first is there is something so powerful when you know that you can hold space for yourself, you can hold space for your pain, you can validate yourself in a way nobody will ever be able to do for you. Nobody can ever tell you how special you are until you feel it. And part of feeling it is really becoming one with that inner child, is really doing the work to set that inner child that is so fearful and worried about the adult you to now trust the adult you, that you got this. And when I made a promise to my little girl, and I put her on my lap and I told her, I promise you I've got this. I've got us. I have the strength. I have the voice. And I cannot see through the uncertainty how perfect everything will be, nor can I give you reassurance right now that things are going to be unbelievable. But what I can tell you right now is I'm here. I've got you. You don't have to be scared. And if you're scared, then you are in the safest place to feel that fear, because my heart has all the room for you. And this is how I started to talk to the younger me and the different versions of the younger me that needed strength from me. When we're healing, we want or we assume that part of our healing is to get the apology from the other person, or the other person to see the pain that we're in. And if they could only see the depths of the pain we're in and the depths of the pain they caused, then our pain would stop. But it doesn't. Only we can ever see ourselves in the depths of our pain. And when you sort of have this all-encompassing hold upon yourself in such a powerful way that grows your self-respect for yourself and sort of opens up like a beautiful flower into how you love yourself, the self-love you have, because of the diligent work it takes to heal from trauma or pain or betrayal. Somehow there is something that comes within you. It's like there's a strength, I got this kind of an energy, even in your most uncertain moments, even in moments where you feel scared or you still feel anxious or you do cry. There's an inner strength inside of you. Literally, it's like in the middle of your chest. And that strength is, you know that no matter what happens this time, you won't crumble. You now have the ability to experience life's natural emotions with yourself. And then you can always choose to co-regulate with somebody that is available or willing. And definitely, I learned that because of the betrayal of pain that I had gone through, obviously the person that had caused that was going through so much guilt and so much shame in their own world. And guilt and shame can turn into rage, and rage protects them. When they're angry, then they don't have to see you in pain. They get to justify, they get to turn away from your pain because they cannot turn inwards towards their own pain, towards the pain that they've caused themselves and you. And that's why I'm saying when we pause to get in touch with our nervous system and understand what's happening in our own bodies, number one, and then being able to tap into the depths of the emotions that we're feeling, number two, and then understanding that our inner child's integrated with us as an adult, number three, learning where our emotions are stored and trusting where they lay in our bodies, number four, somehow we're slowly starting to get a grip of our pain and our healing. And I almost feel it's like when you're trying to put your hand into a tight glove, and sometimes you get two fingers in one part of that glove and you're having to separate it, and then you push your hands and you get that perfect fit. That's what healing feels like. And how do you know that you are healing? Now, believe it or not, you move from a place where you've held so much rightful room for your anger, your pain, your hurt, that suddenly now you can invite the person that has hurt you into your space and your world. And you can hold true, compassionate space for what they are going through in their lives, what pain they are in that could cause that level of pain in that relationship and in your life. And now you no longer view them as, you did this, you selfish prick, you're an asshole. You move away from, I can't believe you did. You move away from blame. You move away from, they are there and I am here. You move away from, if I'm in pain and you cause pain means I'm good and you're bad. You move away from conflict mind, where everything in the mind is set to keep us safe, protect us, and make the other person wrong so that we can be okay. You know you're healing when you can suddenly create room for your pain and their pain side by side. And it doesn't mean you have to condone their actions and their behavior, but you can understand it with compassion. And I realized that my shift, and I'm going to tell you the truth, healing probably took me a year. It took me a solid couple of months in confusion and shock. It took me a solid couple of months to digest and move into anger. And then I was waiting for, okay, when I'm done being angry and I'm going through this whole grief cycle in my healing, I'm going to grieve everything. So I start with all the anger and then I start with the shock. And then after that, I have to like eventually move into sadness. And at some point, I'll probably feel nothing. But I realized for a very long time, I sat in a lot of anger. I thought I would first be in denial and the shock. And then, there was for me no bargaining in the stages of grief. And there was literally regret, or confusion, or I was in a place of how come, or why did that happen to me, or why wasn't I perfect enough, or could I have been more perfect? And then I sat in anger for such a long time, but I moved between anger and depression, or anger and sadness. But I always moved right back into anger. So if I moved into depression and sadness, then eventually moved right back into anger quick enough, and I realized that anger kept me very safe. Anger didn't allow me to cry. Anger didn't allow me to sit. Anger allowed me to be attackful, meaning I could attack the other person. It almost made me feel righteous to the emotions and pain that I was carrying. And I will tell you, how do you know your healing is the acceptance phase. The acceptance phase is where you can truly accept their pain. You can accept their shortcomings, and you really see them in the most human light while seeing yourself in the most human light. So you can understand what deep pain they are in. You can suddenly understand their upbringing. You suddenly almost see them as a childlike person in front of you in pain. And that was my very real experience, where the person in front of me now, I could see their wounds. And there's a part of me that wanted to just hug their pain away, but stayed with, like I told you earlier on, the boundary to the empathy, where the other person had to sit in their accountability. And I had to understand part of my nature is not wanting anyone to be in pain in their accountability, and not wanting anyone to go into deeper pain. Like, it's okay, I understand, I get it, don't worry, because I do. But I realized part of my healing was allowing people to go through their healing, allowing them to sit in their discomfort, allowing them to sit in their shame, in their guilt, in their regret, and not fixing and saving and rescuing and making it okay, but allowing the respect for myself to say, yes, this is deserving. I deserve someone to take accountability for what they've done to me. Of course I do. So it was unbelievably powerful to create a lot of space for what someone is going through in their lives, and hold space, and truly, truly hold that beautiful space for them, but not holding space where you need to be a part of their healing journey. You need to become their therapist, but healing space where suddenly your warmth, compassion, and love emulates from your energy in your heart. And you can truly send that to the other person. They are no longer the villain in your mind. They're no longer the person you want to bring down, but they are the person you see with humane compassion, kindness. So the first question, obviously, we've talked about was, how do I heal from the pain? And then we've looked at how do I know that I'm healing? Now, a lot of people, when they're healing, tend to feel if I'm healing, I can't ever get upset or sad or anxious or depressed ever again. I can't feel any sort of negative emotions in my life. Everything has to be perfect. I have to be confident and courageous all the time and loving all the time. Part of your healing is moving into all the different emotions again. The only difference this time is you're very educated on when you feel these emotions, you know where they're stemming from, you know that they're coming from a core wound, you know they're coming from a limiting belief that you have about yourself, and you're not looking at healing without making mistakes. When I was healing, and there were periods where I would get upset and get so angry, I used to, in the beginning, punish myself and feel, but if I'm healing, I shouldn't be angry and I shouldn't be upset. And what did I just do? And that means I lost all my progress. And I started to learn, no, I'm building a brand new muscle. And a brand new muscle means that there are going to be some days where I'm angry, but this time I catch myself. This time I'm aware of what's going on in my body. I'm aware of the spike in my heart rate. I'm aware that I'm suddenly moving and operating out of my head. I'm aware that I am angry. I'm conscious of the emotion I'm in. I'm not reacting from the emotion. So part of healing is knowing that you could oscillate between being calm and then sometimes moving back into the comfort of what protects you with the emotions that you lived out of in that area. Also looking at attachment styles while you're healing, because if you're avoidant or you're, dismissive avoidant, then clearly the way you numb or you don't deal with pain, guilt, shame, or any emotions is going to be very different to somebody who's anxiously attached and how they heal. And when I work with people that are anxiously attached, one of the first things I want to teach them is, their nervous system and how that works and how to regulate their nervous system. Because when you can regulate your nervous system, suddenly you can understand the power in yourself to take a deep breath and how powerful that can be for you to respond now. So you are training yourself to move from reactivity to response, calm response, compassionate response. And sometimes it won't look like that, and that's okay. I feel that's the biggest reassurance anybody out there needs, is not to punish themselves when they move backwards, because you never really move backwards, because healing is linear. It's different. It's so precious and so wonderful for everyone in their own journey. I don't think I've ever had a client that's moved through these 6 steps to be able to heal and it has ever looked the same for them. Everyone has, some people are faster, some people are slower, and that's okay. Some people will bounce back and live a little longer in a different period and forgot that they have the power to be strong and safe and then come out of that. It's okay. There just has to be no shame in the way we look at how we're going to be able to heal. So we want to try to, feel all the emotions that we have and grieve through all the emotions that we have. So some of the exercises that would really help your nervous system move from being stuck in high levels of stress, of anxiety, panic, into more of a calmer level would be deep breaths. Now, I know a lot of people think, when I'm in the peak of it, like it takes 0.0001 seconds to just have a trigger me, and then I lost it. But when you can pause and recognize now what triggers me, what upsets me, and start to notice that around you. The triggering is the words. The triggering could be the way they breathe. If you're hypervigilant, triggering could be how they stand up to walk away. The triggering could be their tone and how angry they are. And suddenly when you learn what your triggers are, the power comes in you now being aware that, there's the trigger, which means I'm in control of my response. So taking a deep breath can truly, truly is so underestimated in grounding your nervous system. And box breathing is beautiful, which is the breathing in for 4, hold your breath for 4, breathing out for 4. And I would extend it personally myself to breathing in for 6 and then hold for 6 and breathe out for 6, because I just found if I put more oxygen into my brain, it would really help me. Now, at first, it used to be very conscious, because when something would trigger me, I would go, oh, breathing through this. I'm not going to get triggered by you just now. And then later on, where I sit right now, it's very actually conscious. I notice when I'm holding my breath, and I will be like, oof, I'm tense, I'm holding my breath, and clearly I'm upset. So I breathe through that. And now I will take a deep breath and go, I take a deep breath and then I do the Huberman method, which is take a deep breath, and then you breathe in one more time again, and then you breathe in one more time again. And you make a sound out. And I do it 3 to 4 times. But in the moment, if I notice I'm ever getting upset, then I will sit up straight to allow my breath to move. And I change my posture. I always will immediately put my shoulders back, which just gives me a more confident stance. And then I breathe. I take a deep breath in and I take a deep breath out. Another method is the deep yawn. And you sort of like just fake the yawn. So you go, and very often it actually will trigger another natural yawn to take place, because now what you're doing is you're moving your body from a state of high stress and high anxiety from the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system. So when you're feeling worked up and you want to learn, how do I calm my nervous system down? Deep breaths, box breathing, the deep yawn, the Huberman method of breathing in one long breath and then fill the lungs 2 more times and then make a sigh out, just really calms the nervous system down, because that sigh, that vibration is what triggers the vagus nerve with the vibrations to just sort of go, ah. Something else is little things like a beautiful hug from someone very safe in your world, someone that you truly trust, a beautiful cup of hot tea. It could be green tea, just something that just you can put your hands around that mug and it feels so safe, and you just feel like, every time I make a cup of tea, it's like taking a hot sip. It's just, feeling so regulated and calm for me. And another beautiful way would be walking in the wild. So when I used to be in Nairobi, it would be walking in Karura Forest and really paying attention. So I would go into the forest really conscious on how many butterflies can I see, or, how many monkeys can I find, or, how many times am I going to feel the wind against my skin, where the patches in between the forest where the sun feels warm on my skin. So it used to be very conscious walks. And those walks, I would never play music. I'd really just be very a part of the walk. Or over here in LA, it's, walking in the trails and just being a part of that. So wherever you are listening to this podcast, is go for a walk. It could also be going down to the beach and just listening to that beautiful flow of the waves in and out, and then being able to actually breathe to the flow and the rhythm of the waves is something that really calms the nervous system down. singing to your favorite song and sitting in the sun. Exercise, highly underrated, one of the most scientifically, beautifully proven methods, if you listen to Andrew Huberman, on moving out of anxiety and depression, because it just pumps up the body. It just fills you, it activates the body and pushes you into the parasympathetic nervous system. And exercise just grounds you. You know, you can go into heavy lifting, you can go for a crazy run, but you also want to be very, very careful with where you are. If you're somebody feeling, highly charged, if your body's gone into a shutdown mode, if your nervous system is feeling more calm and quiet, then obviously you don't want to go for boxing, you don't want to go for a crazy run, and you don't want to go lift these crazy weights. You will want to move the body out of the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system, maybe with some yoga or a very calm walk with beautiful piano music on. Something I love to listen to when my body's feeling very charged. It's called the Davy Prayer, and it's by Craig Prunes, I believe. Davy Prayer on YouTube or Spotify, and I actually hum to the Davy Prayer, and by the end of it, I just feel so grounded in my body. So obviously there are times when my body feels fired up and it's in, this crazy state sometimes. Then I want to take that stored up energy and I want to go box and I want to go run it out. And I've noticed it takes my nervous system particularly 30 minutes to get out of a fight flight system. So 30 minutes, and normally after 4 kilometers of a run, my mind feels clear and is now ready for strength training. And there are other times where, I can't jump straight into that, but I'll move the body very slowly with stretching and calm music before I go do something. So you don't want to go and do a cold plunge when your body is already highly activated. So you want to be very pay attention to where your nervous system is. So maybe a hot bath, a hot shower can really soothe you. Scents, smells, putting on perfume, spraying something that just you take a deep breath of, and it, just the motion of the spray, the smelling of the beautiful scent, a beautiful vanilla candle, a lavender candle, lighting up candles with scents, aroma oils, things that just can calm your mind down. Those are beautiful regulating nervous system techniques. Humming actually, releases vibrations that stimulate again the vagus nerve and sort of activates now the parasympathetic nervous system. So obviously all of this is creating calmness within the body. Tapping the body with your fingers. And you can go into YouTube to look for somebody that does these tapping motions and where to tap stored emotion out of the body. Somatic exercises where you can lay on your back and put your legs together and sort of sway and allow the hips to open and just rock the hips left to right to release different emotions. And you can Google different somatic exercises as well to release emotion and tension from the body. You can always co-regulate with someone that you absolutely really trust, someone that you really love. And so far, I've always co-regulated with my son when I'm physically with him. He has such a beautiful way of calming me down. The first thing he'll always do, and this is a beautiful tip for you as well, is he puts his palm out, which is safety, which is come. Palms out is a sign of safety. So he puts his palms out and I'll put my hands into them, and then he goes, "It's all right, Mom, you're safe. You can just breathe now, okay?" And he has a very soothing, calming tone. Sometimes he'll actually play piano in the background. Somebody that I love to listen to is Gibran Alcatur. Pretty fancy, because if you don't know, my son's name is Gibran. But he will play some piano in the background, and I just allow for the beauty and vulnerability of my tears to fall And he will, just sort of rub my hands in that moment, just assuring me that I'm safe and it's safe for my body to release tears or whatever it's feeling. So that's something beautiful you could do for somebody as well that, is going through whatever they're going through. But rounding this all up for you, I want you to really understand that when we are healing, we want to be able to heal, and move from shame and move through guilt and move through regret. And we want to be able to be very honest with ourselves a lot of the times with separating how we feel about a situation. I saw a beautiful exercise on YouTube that I absolutely love. So if you're somebody right now that's going through, you know, being you've got betrayed, or if somebody has hurt you, or you've experienced deep levels of trauma, and you sort of are someone that feels it's because of me. There's a lot of shame. So you're in a place of shame where because of me, this happened to me. This exercise was so beautiful in separating your accountability and the other person's accountability. So let me explain that, okay? On a piece of paper, I believe her name's Emma. Gotta get her surname. She's on YouTube, and she did this beautiful exercise. So on a piece of paper, she makes you fold it into half. And then on one side, she wants you to write down all your actions that you feel contributed to whatever happens. Let's say there's betrayal in the marriage or the relationship or the friendship. So write down all the actions you think contributed to that. So that doesn't mean that somebody cheated on you or hurt you because of your actions. This is just for some people who can turn around and say, no, I had nothing to do with their betrayal. I didn't do anything. But very often, sometimes our accountability in all moments really shows us that we might not have been a part of. Let me break down. So somebody cheats on you. It's not to say that because I was not coming home earlier from work, because I didn't love you a certain way, because I didn't do this, that's why you cheated on me. That's not what we're doing. But it's being able to turn around and say, maybe because I didn't voice, maybe because I was so focused on being perfect, maybe I was so scared for not rocking the boat. So you put down on one side of the paper your actions, your accountability, and you put down on the other side of the paper their actions and what they have done. And then she tears this paper in half down the middle. And I loved it because she goes, now the left side and the right side, one piece of paper is your accountability, one is theirs, which shows you you're responsible for yourself and they are responsible for them, which means these two pieces of paper are completely separate. If you are responsible for you and you're honest with yourself, then you can change. Then the choice for change is upon you. But you are not responsible what's on the other side of that piece of paper. They are. That's their work to do. And I think that part of our healing sometimes gets stuck because we feel I have to heal them so I can heal. I have to get them to see what they did so that there's peace within me. But that's the power of accountability. That's the power of you being able to say very honestly, what actions contributed to where I am, to this happening to me in my life. And that means then I'm just going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on what I did and how I can be a better person and how I can no longer do the things that contributed to this part of an event in my life happening. And I thought that was really, really, really powerful to really write down those two lists. And then what you end up realizing is you start to face it. You're not hiding from it, but you face what's going on. Because remember, like I said earlier, our brain always wants to hide. It wants to stay safe. It's trained to blame the other person. It's trained to numb. It's trained to avoid. It's trained to be like, it's not my fault. It's easier to blame than take accountability and responsibility. And part of healing is taking accountability and responsibility. And there is such a strength in that. There's a leadership in that. There's a courageousness in all of that. You can turn around and say, yes, I did let them treat me badly. And therefore, how did I do that? Where did I not have boundaries? Where did I lose my voice? And now it moves you away from you thinking that you're the problem or you're hopeless or something's wrong with you to feel empowered to be able to repair a cycle that goes through you. So you're no longer in a cycle of this toxic shame. So, you're not in a place of, for example, this false shame that, I got cheated on, and you sit in the shame of I got cheated on and that's all my fault. But you can turn around and say, okay, the only thing that, could have prevented me from being cheated on or being abused, was the person taking responsibility for what they did. They hit me. They cheated on me. They're responsible for those actions that they did. I'm responsible, and I'm going to get out of the toxic shame. I'm responsible for not voicing, not standing up for myself, for sitting in isolation and shame for so long. So it's being able to really bring forth when we're healing, bring forth and stand in the face of the shame and the guilt and the regret that we deeply have, because that way we can repair. So, when we realize shame, we sit in shame of what we've gone through, allow something to have been done upon us. We sort of isolate ourselves from so many other empowering relationships that can lift us up. Whereas instead, when we move into a place in our healing journey of repairing with self, therefore repairing with everyone around us, you can sit in a place that is so empathetic with the mistakes that you've made, and you can move into a place now that you listen to, how you did things to hurt the other person, how you did things to hurt yourself. And then it empowers you to be in a place of, how can I make things better? How can I make things better for me without making it worse for them? And now you start to practice learning from this experience so that you never have to do it again. This is how you build skills and you build resources and tools to be able to grow from whatever it is that you have gone through. So you learn how to channel guilt into action, you channel shame into repair, and you now understand that I'm in a place where I'm communicating and so authentic and honest with myself. And therefore, my compassion towards myself overflows at a time that will naturally flow towards other people. So let's be realistic with our healing. Let's be kind to ourselves when we're healing. Let's be soft with ourselves. Let's not compare our healing to anybody but ourselves. It's a solo journey, one that can feel like you're starting out alone, but really you're not. You have all these different parts of you. Think of the different archetypes within you, the sage and the queen within you and the warrior. And if you're a male listening to this, the king inside of you and the magician. And these are just different parts that you can call upon yourself to give yourself advice. Ask your younger you for advice. They are so wise and clever. And pull in that younger you into your beautiful heart. I will eventually move to do and start my YouTube videos, and there I will definitely post beautiful meditations that can guide you to do all of this work. But I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I know that it's a pretty heavy one, and I try to condense a little bit into it by really wanting to give you direction and something that when you walk out of this episode with, you really create room. You start to get so conscious about your body and your nervous system. You start to understand that you operate and live in the mind, how to move and operate and live in the heart, because that's the place compassion is, because compassion eventually heals everything. And I wanted to give a beautiful shout out to a listener called Sylvia, who is the first person that has commented on the podcast. And it made me so excited. It made me jump. I hope your healing journey is one that you embrace. And remember, it is yours and you got this. I believe in you. I'm sending you the tightest hug. I hope your beautiful tears roll down with healing light for you. And write to me and let me know what you're going through on my social media, Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is Shazmin Bank and TikTok Shazmin_Bank. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for spending this time with me on Love Better. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a little more love today. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep growing together. You can find me on your socials, Instagram at Shazman Bank, TikTok at Shazman_bank. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and really connect with you more. Until next time, take care of your heart and remember you are worthy of love that truly feels like home.